Hi guys, my name is Trinity, and if you are here, you're here to see my April wrap up. And I have to say, guys, I went off the wire. The TBR went completely out the window. I don't really know what happened, but I just started picking up books at random, and that's where we are. That's where we are. It has been a crazy year. A crazy year for me, and my reading has been affected. I have to say that. My goodness. Okay, so I have 11 books to talk about. 2 of those I actually finished in March, but I did my wrap up a little early, and I had one disappointment in that, and I had one epic win in that, but that does mean I have 11 books to talk about today. In that, I had one historical fiction, which is kind of a satire, historical fiction, fantasy, supernatural. We'll get to that one. And one sci-fi. The rest were fantasy. And then of that fantasy number, 4 of them were young adult. So I did have a little bit more young adult this month and last month than what I normally read, but again, I want to state that my mental state has been a little off. And whenever I get into a funk, I find that fun young adult can kind of pull me out of it. The dark fantasy that I tend to read, it just kind of cements my mindset instead of fixing it. And so the young adult is there to pull me out of that dark mindset that I can find myself in sometimes, and that I have been in for a little while. So for the first book that I read in March that I still need to talk about, A Fool's Hope by Mike Shackle. So this is an epic, character-driven, grimdark fantasy, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I was not expecting to like this series as much as I have. Now, I keep giving it 4 stars because there's a character in here that I really don't like. Her name is Teenstra, and she is a very prevalent character in this series, but she drives me up the wall, and that's fine. That's fine. The rest of it I absolutely love. And in this second book, because this is the second book in a series, we are following the events of what happens after We Are the Dead almost immediately. And when we see these characters for the final time in We Are the Dead, they are either escaping or they're cementing themselves deeper into this world and deeper into this rebellion. And that's all I can say without giving spoilers, at least for We Are the Dead. And I won't talk about who is doing what, but yes, we have, right off the heels of We Are the Dead, moved on to where these characters are finding their footing. Most of the characters in We Are the Dead really went through some trying stuff. They had some hard times. They really couldn't quite get it together, and they were barely functional as people because they were trying to start this rebellion, and a lot of what they were doing was failing. A lot of what they were doing was making the situation worse. And so I was very excited to read A Fool's Hope because I loved We Are the Dead so much. I loved A Fool's Hope just as much. In the middle of this book, there is a very weird thing that occurs between a few of the characters that slows the pacing down hard. And that part of it I didn't like. It's also the POV that I don't care for. So there was a couple of reasons why, like, in the middle, I kind of just wanted to be like, don't like this. But it's not that I didn't like the book. I just didn't like that part of the book. But Mike Shackle, like I said before, he holds nothing back. This world is grim. It's dark. It's fantastic. And all of the political maneuvering that is happening to get these people where they need to be, it's great. It's great. I'm looking forward to the third book in this series, and it comes out fairly soon, within the next couple of months. So I am so excited to be able to get my hands on it and read it and finish out this trilogy, because I really, really enjoy this. And I can see this becoming a favorite of mine as long as the third book holds up to the first two. It's probably going to be at the bottom of my top 10, but still in my top 10. And you know, there are a lot of second books that suffer middle book syndrome, that either don't tie anything up, or they feel like they're just a bridge to the second or to the third book. It kind of falls a little flat. This one did not. I really loved that about this one. This one held its own and is just as good as We Are the Dead. This next book is about to go to the buy-sell trade. A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Camerer. Now, you guys may have already seen my thoughts on this book, because I did a quarter one wrap up. And since I did read this in March and not in April, I added this to the quarter one wrap up. And I have to say, this wasn't a bad book. It was not a bad book. However, I think this book is overhyped, because it was a standard young adult fantasy. And yes, it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and that's cool. And we have a main character who has a disability, and that's cool. But there's just, it fell flat for me. I think I was expecting so much more, because there's so much hype surrounding this book. But I had read Defy the Night, and it was so good, and it was so much better than this book, which tracks since it's a newer book and the writing has probably gotten better since this book has been released. But I liked this. I liked this. Now, here is where my problem lies with this book. I know the follow-up books are supposed to be significantly underwhelming, and I don't want to ruin my Bridget Camerer love, I guess I should say, especially having enjoyed this one for the most part and really liking Defy the Night. I think I'm just going to take this book to the buy-sell trade, and I'm going to find something else and not continue with this series. But I do like that the main character has a disability. It was really nice to read something where the main character is not perfect. She is not like a Mary Sue, I guess you could say. And I really liked the relationship in this book and how it played out. And, you know, Beauty and the Beast retellings get a lot of flack because sometimes they lean towards the abusive, or toxic or whatever. And I didn't get that from this, so that was pretty nice. But overall, standard YA fantasy, 3.5 stars. The more I think about it, it's probably a 3-star. But yeah, I mean, it's not bad. If you like YA and you like Beauty and the Beast retellings, it's probably worth the read. I have just seen it hyped so much that it kind of ruined my experience with the book. So I had a DNF this month. Well, I've had a couple, but this one is a set aside for later DNF. And as you can see how far I got into it, Red Seas Under Red Skies. I tried reading this, and I'm probably about 30% of the way through. Guys, the book's good. The book is good. However, with my mental state being what it is, I couldn't really keep up, and I kept losing track of what was going on, and my brain was just rejecting all of the things that happened in the book. So I couldn't remember what was happening, couldn't keep things straight. And so I think I'm just gonna have to read Scott Lynch when I'm in the right mindset for it, because I love The Lies of Locke Lamora, but I think my ADHD is going to have to be on point for me to actually read Scott Lynch and enjoy it. And like I said, I was enjoying the 30% of it I read. I can't even tell you what was happening because I couldn't keep up. So I do plan to continue with this series. Like I said, I'll pick it up again sometime, but this one is going to be a soft DNF and a DNF for now. Then I have the Oasis buddy read, and that is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. First Law. Let's talk about First Law for a minute. I adore Joe Abercrombie's writing. Now, I know he gets a lot of flack for not actually being grimdark, and I have to agree. This book is hilarious. I love Glokta. I love Logan. There are so many characters in here that just have so much personality, and they jump off the page. They're so fun to read. Now, if you want plot, this is not the book for you. I am a very plot-driven reader, but I just enjoy Joe Abercrombie's writing. That is all I can say about that. He creates the most enjoyable characters. He creates characters that you're not supposed to like, but you do. And they are all a little morally gray, and it's fun though. It is so fun to read. And I don't think that anyone should go into this expecting like super grimdark. I don't think anyone should go into this expecting some kind of epic story, because that's just not what you're getting. You're getting these fantastic character studies of these pretty horrible people. And it's just fun to read. It's just fun to read. I'm very excited to continue with this series, and I'm going to be continuing it next month with the Oasis buddy read and Before They Are Hanged. And as you can see, I have the whole of Joe Abercrombie's First Law, including the standalones in the continuation. I don't have the next trilogy yet, but I enjoy this so much. I didn't throw it across the room this time. I knew we were going kind of nowhere, and so I was good. I didn't throw it. My goal for April was to actually continue series, and while I didn't continue the series that I said I was going to, I actually found an audio of The Heart of Betrayal, and so whenever I needed a book to listen to while I was doing chores around the house, I just started this one. This is the second book of the Remnant Chronicles by Mary E. Pearson, and these are cute, fun reads. They're YA, and if you are looking for something that is just going to be a fun ride, I highly recommend these books. I love the main character, Leah, and the decisions that she has to make. My goodness, she gets put through the ringer in this book and just tries her best to survive in the world she's found herself in. If you haven't read the first book, it is one of the coolest concepts of a book that I have read. So we have Leah, who's a princess who's about to be married off to a prince to cement an alliance, and she runs away. Now that's pretty standard YA fantasy for you, but the interesting thing is when she runs, an assassin and the prince that she's running from end up chasing after her. And we are given both of those POVs, but not told which is which. So you get to see the assassin's thoughts, you get to see the prince's thoughts, but you don't know which character those thoughts actually belong to. And it's not until the end of the book that it's actually revealed who is the prince and who is the assassin. I enjoy this semi-love triangle that is going on because while she does find that she likes one over the other, she likes them both and for very different reasons. And when she finds out who is who, she kind of makes up her mind then and there, but then things happen in this book that make her question if that was the right choice, or if she should be with this other person, or if there's someone else that she's going to have to end up with just to save her country. And it's very cool, very cool. I really like this series and I really recommend it to anyone who is interested in YA or just wants something fun to read. I can't say it's lighthearted because there are some pretty dark things that happen within this series, but it's really good. It's really, really good. And now for the book that blew me away, for the book that I was so excited to read and delve into and put off, and now I'm sad I put it off because I could have read the other book by now, but I'm a huge fan of Mass Effect, and this book gave me Mass Effect vibes so hard. I sat down to read it and was like, Andromeda. I can totally see this being a storyline that plays out in Andromeda. I loved it. I loved it. So in the orbit of sirens, we have entire human population is trying to survive and finding ways to survive, colonizing planets that they think will be feasible to live on in the future. But these worlds are dangerous. They don't know what to expect and they encounter things that would terrify most people, but what are they supposed to do? They have to survive, and this is the only way that they know how. And then we are introduced to the natives of this planet who are aliens to us, but very cool bird-like creatures, and it's so cool watching T.A. Bruno create all of these fantastical alien or sci-fi creatures and putting them in a world where they should be scary. They should be scary, but they're so interesting and you just keep wanting to know more about the aliens, the creatures, the world, the setting, this garden that one of the main characters has found, and why are they all glowing? Just so many interesting things about this book that I can't wait to continue. I can't wait to continue. You guys also know I get really flustered when I try to talk about a favorite book and then my brain just stops functioning. So that is what we have with In the Orbit of Sirens. I have On the Winds of Quasars right there. I can see it. It's sitting right next to me. And I'm very excited to continue with the series. My friend Izzy is the one who actually recommended it to me, and she's been telling me for a while that I would really like In the Orbit of Sirens, and she was right. She was right. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But yes, fan of Mass Effect, I highly recommend In the Orbit of Sirens because it gives you that feel. And I've said this before. I said it in my Goodreads review. It's not a ripoff of Mass Effect, so don't think that. But it's the vibes. It's the vibes of the game where you are just entering into this new world and feels like you're sitting down to play the video game. It's so cool. It's so cool. And yeah, I loved it. I loved it. So I did get to one that I said I was going to finish in my TBR. And that is King of Assassins by R.J. Barker. This is a favorite series, guys. It's a favorite series. I absolutely love it. I can't talk too much about what happens in this book because so much rides on the plot of the second book that I couldn't really tell you anything about this without spoiling the second book. But Girton Clubfoot, he is a fantastic character to follow. This is just what I want from an assassin series. I want this type of story. I will say that in this book, we're going to war. And Girton is finding his footing in that war and what he has to do to survive pretty much. And he's making a name for himself. This is where Girton really establishes that he is the assassin everybody thinks he is. He is the person who is going to make or break the kingdom. And that's why it's called King of Assassins. But again, like I said, I can't talk too much about it without spoiling the second book. But I love this series. This is definitely a favorite. I am so excited to read more by R.J. Barker. And I would encourage anyone who likes assassin thieves stories to pick up this series. The Wounded Kingdom, it's awesome. Age of Assassins is the first one. But yes, this trilogy has definitely made it into my favorites. Okay, so let's talk about the book that I DNF'd. And I'm sad, guys. I am sad. Yes, the first adult Fairy Loot book, the amazingly beautiful book that I did not like. I could not stand this book, actually. So I'm not a huge fan of huge casts of characters. Now, Malice, Faithful and the Fallen did it right. There's a few that have done it right that I'm just like, I can live with this. I can live with this. And then I actually end up really enjoying the series later on, but this is not a very thick book. And there are 6 POVs. And it drove me nuts. Because we never really got to know the characters very well. And I'm not a character-driven reader, but I need something, something to keep me going with these characters. I just couldn't connect. I could not connect with them at all. I felt that they were all very one note, and there weren't a lot of things that were actually interesting about what was going on. In this book, we have 6 people who are recruited to work at the Library of Alexandria. It still exists. It's a secret society, but these 6 people have magic, and they are recruited because of the magical skills that they have. And so we get to see all the different types of magic, but there weren't a whole lot of differing types of magic, even though these 6 people were supposed to have very different skill sets, that there were 3 different types of magic, and only one of them was going to leave. Not like one of them was going to win. One of them was going to leave. The stakes weren't high. The action that happened in here didn't make a whole lot of sense. And like I said, the characters were all really flat and one note, and I started to just not care at all. And I got about halfway through it before I decided this was just not the book for me. Now, again, it makes me really sad because this book is beautiful. You know, we have all of the characters here. It's foiled. It's beautiful. So what I'm going to do, since this is a very divisive book, I'm going to do a giveaway. And this will be US only because shipping is ridiculously expensive. But if you live in the US and you want this book, comment below and I will do a drawing for a winner. And like I said, it's divisive. I am one of the people who doesn't like it, but there are a lot of people out there giving it 5 stars. I just didn't like it myself. So the next book that I listened to, because I picked up an audio of Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. And as you guys know, I really like Norse tales. I've participated in Norse November. I read a lot of Norse books on my own. And this is a YA that is Norse inspired. My dog keeps moving the tripod, so I'm sorry if I keep shifting, but it's storming here and he really hates storms, so he's trying to lay at my feet. But anyway, Sky in the Deep was such a good YA. I thought it was cute. And now I say cute, but the way that things play out is kind of dark. And I'm just one of those people that really likes dark books. But we have a young main character who there are two clans that are constantly at war. When the book opens up, we actually see her in battle. And this battle is starting, she's fighting, and all of a sudden she is about to go down, and the person she's fighting turns out to be her brother. Her brother who she thought was dead. Now, things ensue from there, and I loved the way it played out. I really loved the way it played out because we get to see a lot of the Norse beliefs and, you know, how they think that her brother came to help her, but it wasn't really her brother. It was her brother in spirit, and she's been blessed. And, you know, the next time they go to battle, she sees him again, and she's like, okay, no, that was real. And she follows him. And it's such a great story from that point on. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. And I really think that I'm going to enjoy the next one just as much. Now, it's not my favorite YA. It does read a little young. The tone can be kind of young. But like I said, it has dark moments throughout the book too. But there's also a really cute romance that is playing out in the book. And I enjoyed that. And this is on my Pop Sugar Challenge for a duology. So like I said, I will be reading the next book. And I've knocked one off the list. Just got to get the other one read. One that actually turned out to be completely random because about halfway through the month, I was like, okay, I don't even want to read fantasy anymore. Epic fantasy, I'm done with it. I don't want it. I quit. I have those moments, guys. I have those moments, especially when I end up reading a whole bunch of character-driven books. I get to a point where I'm like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. But I was really, really in the mood for some magical realism, historical fiction, something supernatural. And then my friend Andrew told me about this book, and I was like, okay, that sounds perfect. That sounds perfect. The Master and Margarita. I love this book, the cover of this book. And when I saw the cover, I was like, I don't even care what the book's about. I just want that book because it's so gorgeous. Now for my thoughts on the book. So the first half of this book, I loved it. I loved it. It's crazy. It's weird. It's wacky. It's Russian. And we're dealing with the devil has shown up in Moscow. I think it was Moscow, right? Yeah. And he has run amok. He's getting all these people to do these weird things, and it's fun. It's really fun for the first half. Now, I do feel like the writing completely falls off in the second half, and then I just got confused and I was like, oh, what's happening? Which I feel like that's the intent of the book. And so you kind of get wrapped up in no one really knows what's going on, and now you don't know what's going on. Are you falling into the trap that the devil has set? It's good. It's good. I really actually enjoyed, like I said, the first half was great. The second half, ooh, sorry if you can hear the thunderstorm because the thunderstorm just started. It was just raining. But yes, the Master and Margarita, it was fun. I would actually recommend it. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. And the reason for that is the ending is just convoluted and confusing. But I do think it's just a fun book that everyone should read, because you just need to be as confused as I was. But yeah. And God, look at this, guys. Like, look at this book. I'm keeping it. I don't care if I gave it 3.5 stars. I'm keeping it because I enjoyed it. And I finally finished a David Dalglish novel. Woo! Like, cue the clapping, because I own all of the David Dalglish books and have not read a single one of them, but this one, The Bladed Faith, his newest one. So I will probably do a dedicated review for this, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but let me say I liked it. I absolutely hated the audiobook. Hated it. I have not listened to an audiobook that irritated me more than the audiobook for this. It was awful. The person, the female narrator, had a speech impediment that actually just irritated me because I couldn't understand some of the things that were said. I do immersive reading anyway, so I was following along, and that wasn't quite so bad because I was not listening to the audiobook alone. I was following with the physical. But man, since she couldn't speak clearly, I can't imagine what other people are going to experience when they listen to the audiobook, or if they try to listen to the audiobook by itself. And then she would stop at the end of a line, not the end of a sentence. And it was a hard pause. So it didn't flow well at all. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to put this audiobook aside and just physically read, because I don't know how I'm going to get through this book otherwise. Now, the male narrator wasn't too bad. And I actually think it was Damian Lynch, and I really enjoy him. But the female narrator, oh my goodness, I couldn't stand the female narrator. So this book is really cool, but I don't think the synopsis does it justice, because the synopsis leads you to believe that you're going to be following a master assassin at some point. And while our main character does get to a point where he is fighting all of the big bads in this world, he is still a kid. And he has this super cool mask. I think that is super cool. But he's trained to take down the Everlorn Empire, who slayed his family. And I enjoyed watching him learn how to do all of these things. I really enjoyed the way we developed the characters and the relationships in this book. And David Dalglish, I don't think he's going to be a favorite author for me based off of this book, but I did like it. I did like a lot of the elements that were here. Now, I don't know if the things that I didn't like about it were because of the narrators of the audiobook, but the pacing was a bit off. I didn't like that. And I'm going to read you the back of this because it does have plot, but the plot rides very much on something that is a spoiler. So I don't want to talk too much about that. I'm just going to read the back of the book here. A usurped prince will take up the mantle of a deadly assassin to reclaim his kingdom, his people, and his slain gods in the explosive start to USA Today's bestseller David Dalglish's new epic fantasy trilogy. So Cyrus, our main character, he's 14 when his parents are slayed, and he watches it. He sees it happen, and his guard tries to rescue him. Well, he felt the need to sacrifice himself because his parents were slain and he didn't want to live anymore. And like I said, he's about 14, but he ends up getting rescued anyway and pulled off, taken away to train to fight. And while he is off training to fight, the gods live amongst the people, and the gods that he had and that his country held are slain while he is gone. And so he has all of these pent up emotions about having his gods be slain and his parents be slain, but still being very, very young and trying to take on the role of a god himself, trying to put on the persona of this god of a different kingdom that the new empire has already faced. And so it's pretty cool. Like I said, it's pretty cool. I gave it 3.5 stars because I didn't think it was great. And like I said, I don't know how much of that is writing on it being the audiobook's fault and not David Dalglish's. And for the last book that I read in April, I picked up Sisters of the Snake. I just have to say, Owl Crate, you kill it sometimes. You kill it sometimes. This has so many of the Aladdin feels. And I am comparing it to Aladdin because there's a lot of stuff in here that is very reminiscent of Aladdin. And my dog is still moving the tripod. I am so sorry. I have moved him, but he keeps moving back to try and get under my feet. This is very reminiscent of Aladdin, like I said, but what we have here is a twin swap situation, and we have a thief and a princess, and they find out that they are twins, and someone has been lying to them. And there is a very Jafar-esque character in here, which makes me liken this to Aladdin. And then the snake magic itself, it's obviously reminiscent of Jafar. And we have a quest, just like Aladdin had a quest for the genie. And it's so very reminiscent of Aladdin. But I love Aladdin, and I loved this book. I thought it was so fun. It was so good. And I really liked the twin swapping scenario because of what happens with them while they are supposed to be their sister. And, you know, it's really cool when they finally reveal who they are to the people around them, because it's almost like they realize that they should have known, and it's really, really fun. Anyway, like I said before, I have trouble talking about books that I really enjoy because I just get so excited and then my brain doesn't want to work. But yes, I would highly recommend this again if you like young adults, because it's just fun. And I think that anybody could enjoy this book because there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on that reminds us of our, Disney childhood. All right, that is it for me today. Like, subscribe, do all the fun things, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.